Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Alexx Calise, and you are watching my brand new podcast show. Today we are joined by my good friend Daniel Corey. How you doing today, sir?
Excellent, thank you. Always good to be here.
Awesome. So Dan and I have been friends for a really, really long time. And for all of you out there who don't know who he is, he's a fantastic writer, graphic artist, pretty much like a Renaissance person of sorts.
Thank
You
you.
do a little bit of everything very well. I'll let you kind of do the talking. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Well, I'm Daniel Corey. My online persona is Danger Cat. But yeah, I have a background in music, in drama and writing. I started off doing theater and writing plays and acting and things like that. So, I came out to LA, got into the comic book business. I did a few books with Image Comics and worked with some wonderful artists on that, and ended up kind of becoming a de facto graphic designer. In the last decade or so, I've been swinging back towards music a lot and writing.
That's fantastic, dude. So tell us a little bit about what you're using right now, the different technologies that you're using in order to optimize your artistry.
I'm working with tools now like Midjourney and Kyber AI and Automatic 1111 Stable Diffusion. I just started learning that. I value having a background in comics. I really value wonderful artists: Chris Fenolio, Dave Lanphier, Mike Vosberg. We did some really great work together at Image Comics, and like that stuff I couldn't have done myself at all, even with these new tools. That's a whole different thing, sequential art and storytelling in that form. But when it comes to creating the branding for the music, creating logos, creating audio reactive videos and things like these are things that I can do myself now that all artists can do on their own. It's just a matter of economics, really.
So, Dan, one question that I have to ask you, we have so many different technologies right now, especially when it comes to AI. Imagine if you had all of those tools back then
Mhm.
for promoting your music or promoting your comics. Do you think that you would have saved like thousands of dollars?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, if you want to really work in comics and do something at the level of Image Comics and all this, you got to work with really real able-bodied visual artists that can draw. That's always going to be expensive. You're always going
Right.
to, if you want to be in comics, you got to spend, spend, spend. That's just the way it goes. If you're a writer in comics, you need to hire artists. You got to spend. But for creating media for yourself as a musician, yeah, I mean, thousands of dollars can be saved.
There are a lot of things I do not like about, say, AI or automation, all of this
Yeah.
different stuff. However, I use ChatGPT so much now
Hmm.
just to complete just some of the tedious tasks that I have
Yeah.
to do, say at work related stuff, personal stuff.
Hmm.
I mean, I love ChatGPT even for making outlines,
Hmm.
coming up with hashtags. Like
Yeah.
I wish that ChatGPT existed in the form that it did now,
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
5 years ago. I think it would have really helped a lot of people.
Hmm.
There's also a very dark side to it.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about the future of AI?
With the future, where's it going to go? I mean, there was this. Was it OpenAI has just really revealed Sora, which is just unbelievable. Like they're generating full-on stock footage just from text prompts.
I saw that, and that's
Yeah,
scary.
it is. So people are trying to get ahead of the curve, like legally, with like these new companies that are coming out with these tools are putting stuff like they're putting legalese on the sites and things and saying you are not allowed to use this to pretend to be somebody else.
Right.
You know,
That wasn't always the
yeah.
case, even
Hmm.
a matter of like a few years ago. I
Yeah.
remember that you could, if you
Yeah.
wanted to, on say Dolly or
Hmm.
Dolly or Dolly, I'm not sure,
Dolly, I think. Yeah.
Dolly, you could create these prompts like Queen Elizabeth skydiving, and it
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
was
mean,
hilarious.
you can
But
still do
yeah, you
that,
can. But
but it's like, now it's in the open that people know that you can do that.
right.
So we all know probably Queen Elizabeth's not actually skydiving. Yeah, man, there's so much. Oh my gosh, it's like, where do we even start? But my thing is, and I'm a big fan of it, but I want to always be careful to use it ethically.
Of course.
You don't want to represent yourself as, oh, I drew this. You know what I
Of
mean?
course not. But
Yeah.
you're a good guy about it. The same
Yeah.
thing with me. I've even used AI to help my graphic designers to some
Hmm.
extent. I
Yeah.
remember when I was creating a logo for myself
Hmm.
that I just did a few prompts
Yeah.
and just to kind of get an idea of what to tell the graphic designer
Yeah.
before they kind of just went in
Generate a few
blind.
concepts.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. You
Yeah.
said it more eloquently. A few
Yeah.
concepts for
Yeah.
them. So I think in the end it helped them because it
Hmm.
kind of eliminated some of that back and forth.
Hmm.
I was trying to be a good person about it. I
Yeah.
still hired an artist. I didn't just
Yeah.
create something using AI.
Yeah.
Another question that I had just based on some of the things we were talking about. Do you think that in the near future, say in the comic book realm, for example,
Hmm.
that someone could completely create via AI an entire comic book series.
I think it definitely can happen. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to see it now because like continuity, like on Midjourney, if you want to create comic panels and create a comic page, like continuity is like almost impossible. Now I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube where people are able to generate faces and hairstyles and stuff that are pretty consistent, but nothing's ever really the continuity stinks. If you want to
Mhm.
do the same person twice, the costume is always going to be different.
Right.
The hairstyle is going to be long, short, whatever. So that's the main problem. Somebody will probably solve it.
We did a song a few months now, or is it years? My
It was
gosh.
last year.
Last
Yeah,
year, we did a
yeah,
song last year, me and my songwriting partner, Dennis Morehouse, in my band Batfarm. We produced a song with you.
yeah.
You did all of your own PR to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
You put together your EPK, you
Yeah.
designed a cassette single, and you
Mm-hmm.
did all of the
Mm-hmm.
the artwork for that. Kind of explain to everybody how you did it and some of the technologies that you incorporated for it.
I have this project called Map of the World, and that is not an AI project. That is a digital photography and Photoshop Adobe Suite editing project that I started in quarantine. I started taking pictures of my face. There's nothing to take a picture of because you can go outside. I took pictures of my face, close-ups of my eyes, and I started overlaying pictures from a vacation that my wife and I had taken in 2019. Just like we had gone to Europe and gone to London and Paris, and I started overlaying, like blending in pictures with my face. And then I wanted to grow that into more and use that for music branding and story branding and such. So with the AI, like I was able to feed those map of the world images into like Midjourney and create imaginary humans that have these, different marks and things on their face. I was able to create characters. And when it came to our song Lift Me Up, I was like, okay, I'm going to create a visual campaign and a video for this. So, like, I created the cassette single. I made this artwork. Now, what I always want everything to start from a physical object that I have found. My wife had just got me this nice Gretsch resonator guitar. So, I took some photos of that, and I had some like woodblock printed Japanese books from 19th century from Kyoto that we picked up when we were in Japan last year. I started layering all these things together in Photoshop, and then feeding that into Midjourney, then bringing it out of Midjourney, editing it in Photoshop, editing it more in Lightroom, and then sometimes running it into Midjourney again, bring it out again, and then I was like, I could now. Then Photoshop started with this generative fill. You can start with a square picture and generate out the sides to make it 16 by 9. It'll read what you have and make a bigger frame. So all these pictures of these guitars that I had that were landscape, I started dropping those into Photoshop and making 16 by 9 movie frames out of them. So I had like a guitar with a cyberpunk city landscape that I made from a picture of Tokyo. So I'm like, okay, this is all kind of an extension of map of the world. This is all kind of visual branding. I'm creating a world. This is where I'm doing my Octung Baby, album
Right.
art
Yeah, yeah,
here,
yeah. So this
Um,
was all kind
yeah,
of inspired by all of that. I didn't
yeah,
realize that with
yeah,
V2 and Peter Gabriel. It makes a lot of
yeah.
sense. And I think you have to do stuff like that
Hmm.
nowadays. I think you're on to something, having some kind of a visual component as
Yeah.
well.
Hmm.
Because I remember just recently, I went to the Tool concert
Oh
and
yeah, they had a great visual show, right?
oh,
I saw
yeah,
it on social media.
it was
Yeah.
fantastic going and seeing them live and seeing that phenomenal visual performance.
Hmm.
It was transformative. I was sitting there and
Yeah.
it like I feel like you could have been doing yoga, you could have been
Yeah.
just you could have been on mushrooms and just like kind of laying back, it was such an inventive experience
Hmm.
or transformative experience.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to that, to what
Yeah.
you're doing. And I see now, based on
Yeah.
what you're telling me as far as your influences, where it comes from.
Yeah.
So would that be something that you would suggest to some upcoming artists, like kind of thinking outside the box like that? Maybe
Always think outside the box. I'm always wanting to do something people haven't done.
I've
Yeah.
never seen anything like, for example, the business cards that you've
Hmm.
done before. If you scan like the QR code,
Hmm.
then his song starts playing and there's like this little Dan Corey that starts jumping around. I've never seen anything like that. So
Yeah.
that's super cool. And that's something that I think people will remember. And you
Yeah.
always do stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that's
you.
super cool.
Thank
And
you.
that's kind of your signature. And
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that started from creating comics. I was making comics in the early to mid teens. It was around 2016. I'm like, okay, I want to get into augmented reality. It was really hard then because there was some few companies doing it. I'd write them and say, hey, how much does it cost to do this? And I had somebody write back, oh, it's, you just got to pay us $3,000 a month or something. I'm like, this should be really more available. And it eventually was. But at the time, there was a really nice company with these really nice folks called Blipper. They caught on to what I was trying to do, and I had a call with them. They were in Europe, and they let me have access to their tools for free for a time. And I was able to create a very early, I don't know if it was the first, but it was a very early augmented reality experience with one of my comics in 2016. You were a character in the book.
That was so cool. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm in a comic book.
And
How
your
cool is
music,
that?
yeah, and I
Yeah.
established your music alongside the visuals of the comic
was super
as
cool. Thanks,
the
dude.
official music of the comic, you know. So like that was an early attempt of like trying to loop all this stuff together. I created like you could scan the cover, and it was all like a DVD menu. Like it would pop up in 3 dimensions, and like you could click to watch a trailer, you could click to flip through some art, you could click to hear your song. You know, it was just a cool thing that is like, hey, look what I can do. And then a few years after that, I branched out to do VR comic. I worked with these wonderful guys in Australia, Transmedia Entertainment, produced this VR comic based on my Moriarty title that I did for Image Comics. Those were good experiences, but it all kind of led to what I'm doing now, like Map of the World popped up and all this. And then I go to see U2 at the Sphere, and like you saw Tool and their show, and it was just like visuals with music and like it's like comic book like realm of that's immersive. And like this is what I'm wanting to do. So that's kind of what branched me into doing the work I've done with Lift Me Up.
Another thing too, I mean, I know we're talking about new technologies that artists can use in order to propel their brand, but another thing, what brought us together was we're from 2 very different worlds.
Hmm.
So you're from the comic book world and I'm from the music world. But another thing that you could potentially do as a musician is kind of connect with some of these different worlds.
Yeah.
There isn't as much competition. That's one thing that I've always tried to do, even with my own career. If I'm trying to get PR for myself, you know, maybe I'll hit up Cat Fancy because I happen to own 2 cats.
Yeah.
You know, because
Great, yeah.
there's very little competition in that arena.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna hit up Cat Fancy.
I've got cats, you know?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's one thing that that's more of a marketing thing, and I'm sure I'll do an episode about
Mhm.
just that
Yeah, yeah.
later on. But I just wanted to kind of explain how we kind of connected, and we're
Yeah.
from different worlds, but we managed to kind of bring them together.
Right.
And now you're even bringing that together for yourself because you
Mhm.
happen to have the music background and then you have the comic background,
Hmm.
and you're combining them into this cool cyberpunk thing. And what's different about it is that, you know, you're playing music that I wouldn't say it's like folk. I don't know, what is it, like
Yeah, I mean, it's
Americana?
Americana, folk, kind of rootsy.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that you were talking to me about this earlier, just because you play that style of music, like, doesn't mean that you have to stand out in a field or
Right, yeah,
for
yeah.
your album cover. At least to me, it seems like you're bringing in your comic book background,
Mhm.
like, because I can see it in all of your visuals, at least.
I had a good friend recently saying, "There's something wrong with your branding. Why you look like your branding looks like an electronic musician, but you're playing like folk music. This is bad. This is wrong." I'm like, no, I must just you know, respectfully disagree, because how many guys are wearing overalls and wading through fields of wheat playing acoustic guitars, you know? And I don't even, I'm not a nature guy, you know. You hear my music, you think, oh, he's got to be up in the mountains like by a waterfall playing an acoustic guitar. I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. You know,
Right.
I'm an urban person. I like cities, and I like cyberpunk. I like dystopia. I like sci-fi, and you know, and but think about stuff in the '70s. Think about like the albums of Crosby, Stills and Nash, the Doobie Brothers, whatever, Boston. What, you know,
Yeah.
it's just all like neon UFOs.
Or
You
like
know,
ELO.
ELO. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the kind of that's the, you know, I dig that vibe a lot more. I like thinking of this as being more outer space.
That's kind of an interesting take on it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, too, especially when you're funding your own career,
Hmm.
do whatever the hell you want to do.
Nobody's paying you to do
Nobody's
it.
paying you to do it, so you
Yeah.
might as well do what you like,
And
right?
that's exactly the other thing that I tell everybody. I'm like, hey, nobody's paying me to do this. I'm going to do what I want.
Right.
You know, 'cause I'm going to enjoy it.
Hmm.
I can't imitate anything anybody else is doing. Okay.
New artists or upcoming artists, how can they use these new technologies to carve out a niche for themselves, similarly to how
Mhm.
you have?
I would say, like for me, I just started doing stuff I like doing. I started generating visuals that I like, and I started writing music that I like, and that was within my ability to do. Just play around. You know, I've spent thousands of hours, you know, as far as just with writing music, and also just like in these tools like Midjourney and Kyber AI and stuff. I spent thousands of hours experimenting, making things that I like, and then like you'll sit around for hours, hundreds of hours, like making certain things that are just fun for you to make, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, now I know how I can loop this into my other stuff. Now I know how to insert my personal identity into this work. Like, so this is a thing that somebody can do. Like, make a music video using these technologies. If you get adept at making Midjourney images, and you know how to edit stuff in Adobe Premiere, or you know how to create animations with Kyber or Automatic 1111, think about making a music video, or even 30-second, like record a instrumental piece of 30 seconds long and create some visuals to go with it, and eventually go yourself up to doing a full song. You'll find that it's a transformative experience. You're making a world for yourself.
And when we went to one of what was the film festival thing that we went to that
Yeah.
at the Grauman's?
My music video, Lift Me Up, I put it into a lot of film festivals, and so far I've won 16 first place prizes from film festivals all over the world. It was the Silicon Beach Film Festivals at the Grauman's Chinese Theater, or TCL Chinese Theater now.
There were some cool projects from not just yourself, but some
Other
other
folks,
people
yeah.
that I'm not sure which programs. Maybe you could tell me just
Mhm.
based on how they looked,
Yeah.
which programs they were using. But there were so many cool projects because I remember you saying to me,
Mhm.
like, I don't know if people are going to like this or not, that I made some of my stuff using AI, but there were so many other
Yeah.
projects that
Mhm.
had that element to it. So I just thought it was so cool that it's becoming normal
Yeah.
and you're seeing it a lot more.
Yeah.
So, can you recall any of as far as the programs, did you talk to any of the other folks there, what they were using?
I did. Okay, so this guy is Henry Jack Toll. Remember him? He had this hilariously
Oh,
strange,
yeah, that was super
surreal.
weird and
It
awesome.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was surreal. It was hilarious, and he's a musician too, and he had his music incorporated into it. He was generating stuff through Midjourney, and then creating faces, and then making faces lip sync using some. There's a lot of different software plugins for that. I don't remember which one he used for that, but I think he was starting with Midjourney, editing things together in Premiere and After Effects, and so a lot of like what I was doing. And there was another fella. I think he was using Stable Diffusion.
Mm.
He created the animation in one thing, and I think he created the animation like maybe in Blender, but then he skinned it to look like cell animation using Stable Diffusion.
And tell everybody what
Yeah.
Blender is.
Oh, Blender's like a traditional 3D, traditional traditional for the last 30 years, like the type of 3D program that they use to create graphics for like Star Wars movies and stuff like that. So that's where you're a real artist and you have to like animate everything by hand and all this and model everything by the hand. So he had done that, but then he used Stable Diffusion to skin it, basically to rotoscope it to make it look like cell animation.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and I don't remember his name. I don't remember the name of his project, but it was a student film about robots and friendship. And I'm like, I've never seen a student film that didn't end with somebody dying or somebody being not actually there. It was about friendship, like so that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I was like,
wish I
oh,
remembered
that's
his name.
sweet. Yeah.
It was nice to see a kid that was a student making a sweet story about friendship and using that technology to do it. In my project, I use Kyber AI for the animation in Midjourney and in Adobe Suite and stuff like that. So yeah, me and these other folks at this festival were doing this, and it was just a wonderful experience that night to have it screened at the Chinese theater.
You're using all of these things as tools. You're not
Yeah.
using them as crutches. And that's something that I really want to drive home to everybody.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of bad points about AI and
Yeah.
like all of these technologies,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but there's a lot of positive and there's a lot of really creative things that you can do with it. And I don't think there's a better example of, as far as someone I know personally that does all of that stuff. You're utilizing it as a tool. You're not utilizing it as a crutch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you. Yeah, it's transparency is very important. So I make a lot of things and post them on social media. I always write a paragraph like this, like of what I did to make this image. So you got to be very transparent. Let them know what tools you use so that they understand that. I think it's always important. I come across accounts where it has a person's name and there's all this wonderful pictures, and I'm like, did you paint these? And there's no descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, did you paint these? Did you draw these? Because if you drew these, I'm going to follow you. I'm scrolling through and I'm like, I don't know if this is just guys just aggregating pictures that he liked from the internet if he drew them. So
Well,
it's important
that's a
in any
great
case.
point,
Yeah.
actually. How do you differentiate these days as far as what's real and what's not? And
Yeah,
do you think
transparency is key.
do you
Mhm.
think that it's going to get even worse in the next few years as far as being able to tell what's real and what isn't real?
It's going to be harder to tell what's real and what's not real. I think I think the ethics are being pounded into people's, minds. But there's going to be scoundrels out there that are get away with stuff. There's these people deep faking Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's terrible. I mean, like Tom is okay. He's doing okay in his world, but like it's not right somebody pretending to be him and making him look like a fool or whatever. And they're going to start doing that. People are going to start doing that to their friends. Not just famous people. So that's the thing we got to police that.
I think there should be regulation of some sort, though. That's one thing
there's got to be something. Yes, absolutely. The people that make the tools need to instill ethics and, and educate people how to use their stuff right. And, there's restrictions in Midjourney. You can't do nudity or graphic violence and things like that. So you can filter stuff like that. But when you get to Stable Diffusion, you have it installed locally, you can do whatever you want. So that's where you got to start policing yourself. Don't use public domain things. Like I photograph physical objects and I incorporate that into AI and then I edit that together into video using Adobe Suite. But like all the documents are used are 100 years old. I'm not using anything for profit that is not public domain, or that I didn't just create myself. So I think that's important.
Could you put together like a list of a few different programs as far as recommendations? Like, let's say I'm an independent artist and I want to put together a pro EPK, electronic press kit. So what are a few programs that I could use right now in order to present my brand the best that I possibly can?
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of levels of things, so I say like just for like a beginner who doesn't really know digital media very well. I mean, if you have a Mac, there's Pages, which comes free with the Mac, and you can make layouts that look like magazines in Pages. I use Pages to lay out my EPK, materials. There's basic materials like that, but like I would encourage people who really want to get into creating and building a visual brand to learn Adobe Suite, like learn Photoshop. And I mean, you can get Photoshop Express, which is inexpensive, and learn how to use layers, and that you can learn the basics of using that in a half hour. The practice of using it and making good things takes hundreds of hours, really.
Right.
If you want to edit videos, this Premiere and After Effects is a compositing tool. Those are great to learn. But if you don't have the wherewithal to do that, use iMovie on your Mac. That comes free with the Mac. Use that to edit videos. That works fine. There's other little programs you can get to make social media videos that cost $30 that can do all kinds of things. You can do basic compositing and things with. But yeah, so like Adobe Suite, definitely that's kind of my first thing to say go to. Midjourney, if you want to get into high level image creation with AI, learn Midjourney. You got to spend a lot of time in there. You got to read forums, read up on how to use it, learn how to edit within Midjourney, learn how to use the Adobe tools so that when you bring images out of Midjourney, you can edit them and make them look right. Learn generative fill and all the AI tools within Photoshop that are there now. And then if you want to get into animation, the best way to get started, I think, is Kyber AI. Is what I use to make my Lift Me Up video. That's a great one. And then Automatic 1111 Stable Diffusion. That's way more advanced. I'm learning that, but that's a good one to learn too. But like, yeah, so basic bare bones: Adobe Suite, Kyber AI, Pages. You're going to be on a good start there.
Yeah, I would say that's a really, really good start.
Yeah.
And then if you're interested in doing I'll just add something. I mean, this is not for an EPK, but this is just for musicians because you have to be content creators now too, in addition to just, being a musician. But if you're using, say, Premiere, what it does now, there's a lot of really cool AI editing tools in there as far as like, chopping out, lulls in a conversation and and things like that. It will automatically do that for you. And
I haven't even gotten into that aspect of Premiere yet.
It's insane. And then you can also do transcription with it. Or it gives you like a transcript of the conversation.
I used to work in transcription.
Yeah, exactly. All
I did
about
that
transcription.
For 17 years in transcription. Oh my gosh,
so,
that word kind of.
I know. Are you having a PTSD from transcription? You're like, ah. But this has been phenomenal. I've learned so much today. You had some really great insights. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you today, and it's fun to talk again.
Absolutely, man. Bump it. All right, as far as all of you guys out there, make sure to smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.